Hello again, everybody. Welcome into our video series here on BaltimoreBaseball.com. I'm Steve Cockey, and the Orioles off to a 6-2 start here in 2017 after Thursday night's nail-biting victory against the Toronto Blue Jays up at Rogers Center. Here to break it all down for us as only he can, of course, we bring in our senior writer, Dan Connolly. Dan, how are you?
Good, Steve. How are you?
I can't complain. So, Dan, 6 innings tonight from Kevin Gausman, a quality start for him, which have been few and far between here so far in 2017. Your thoughts on how Gausman did and how this starting pitching has kind of looked overall so far?
Well, you know, it's looked a little rusty, but it's been early, and so far the only quality start was thrown by Dylan Bundy. So he had a couple of them, and no one else had one. So the fact that Gausman got a quality start is good, but the way he pitched today, Steve, you know, he used his fastball. He was locating. He was getting a lot of ground ball outs, which I think is fantastic. He had 10 ground ball outs. And really, this is the Gausman that we expect to see. I mean, you know, you have to understand it's early. You know, he'll have his ups and downs. But when you think about it, you know, this Toronto Blue Jays offense, and I know they don't have Edwin Encarnacion, and I know they haven't done particularly well so far, but you know, this is a good offense. And to shut them down in Toronto, I think, you know, kind of shows us how good that Kevin Gausman can be.
Absolutely. Yeah, good outing. Again, 2 quality starts from Dylan Bundy coming in, and then Gausman tonight with one of his own. Nice to see him getting on track again against a good offense. Staying on starting pitching, Dan, we've all kind of had April the 15th circled on our calendar, so to speak, because we knew that's when the Orioles were going to need that 5th starter. It was up in the air with a lot of guys potentially in the mix. Chris Lee, Jason Aquino, Mike Wright, and it's turned out to be Alec Asher that will make this start for the Orioles. He was acquired just a couple of weeks ago from the Phillies. What do you know about Asher, and what do you think we can expect from him here with making the start on Saturday?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think that Asher, after what he did on Monday against Gwinnett, the Atlanta Braves AAA club, I think when he did that, when he pitched 4 1/3, 4 hits, he struck out 6, he didn't walk any. And I think that was kind of the thought that this would be the guy. He was already on turn for Saturday anyway. But not only did he pitch fairly well in that game and not give up a run, but the other guys, the guys that you mentioned, they didn't pitch well. And really it was a competition for the April 15th start. And Mike Wright didn't pitch well in either of his starts. And Jason Aquino didn't pitch well. Chris Lee pitched well on Thursday, but, you know, his first start before that, he didn't pitch particularly well. Gabriel and Noah, the same thing. You know, Tyler Wilson's in the majors. He was a possibility for it. The reason they chose Asher, he does have major league experience. You know, he is 2-7 with a 5.88 ERA in 12 games, all 12 starts for the Philadelphia Phillies in 2015 and 16, you know, and he's really considered a kind of a 5th starter guy. He was part of a huge trade in 2015 when the Philadelphia Phillies sent Cole Hamels to the Texas Rangers, and the Rangers traded like 6 minor leaguers to Philadelphia, and he was probably maybe the 5th rated of those 6 prospects, and you know, and there were some other guys in there. You know, who Alfaro and Eichhoff and you know, those guys, Thompson and Nick Williams, that were maybe ahead of him a little bit. But he's a guy that is basically considered a fringe major leaguer, a guy who has a chance, if things go well, to be a 5th starter, maybe 4th starter in the majors. He has 4 pitches. None of them are considered above average pitches. His fastball is in the low 90s. You know, he has a decent slider from what I've been told. You know, he throws a changeup, he throws a curveball. All of them are considered average type major league pitchers, or maybe even a tick below average major league pitches. But you know, if he throws strikes, if he mixes his pitches, you know, he can have some success in the majors, and he did last year in a very limited amount. I mean, he was 2-1 with a 2.28 ERA and 5 starts for the Phillies last year. So I think the Orioles felt like he had given them the best showing in the first week and a half of the season. And again, this is a spot start, and this is kind of what this guy is. He's a 5th starter, and so they're going to see what he can do. Unfortunately for him, you know, he gets the opportunity to pitch against that Toronto Blue Jays offense in the Rogers Center, and neither of those is usually a good thing for a guy who hasn't had a lot of experience in the majors.
Never a fun assignment, Dan. That is for sure, trying to face those Blue Jays up at Rogers Center. Now, taking a little bit of a step back, 6-2 start for the Orioles after Thursday night's one-run win. I believe they're 4-0 now in one-run games to start off this season. Your overall impressions on this club and kind of how they're lining up compared to maybe what you expected here 8 games into the season?
Well, I'll tell you what. To me, the most important stat of all of this is 6-2 in the American League East. That to me is huge because they're now 3-0 against Toronto, and Toronto and the Orioles, they just go at it. And last year I think it was 10-9 that Toronto won, and that's the reason that they got the wild card home game. So the fact that they started off 3-0 and they're burying the Blue Jays right now. The Blue Jays have just one win this season, I believe. So I think they're 1-8 now. So the fact that that the Blue Jays are struggling, the Orioles are taking advantage of it, is huge for the Orioles. And if you look overall, they're 1-1 against Boston, they're 2-1 against the Yankees, and they're now 3-0 against Toronto. And I think that is the biggest thing right here, is that they were playing almost all of their games in April are against American League East teams, with the exception of the 3-game series in Cincinnati. And to start off 6-2, that's big. And how they've been doing it, like you said, one-run victories, they're 4-0 in those. Tonight, I think the most encouraging thing was the starter gives them 6 innings, and then after that, O'Day shuts it down for an inning, Brock shuts it down for an inning, and then Britton shuts it down for an inning. Now, obviously, Britton's inning wasn't particularly clean, but overall, that's really the formula for the Orioles. Get 6 good innings out of their starting pitcher, and then those 3 guys, or a Michael Givens or whatever, they can really shut it down for 3. You'd like to see the Orioles rotation go deeper, but if you get 6 good ones, that can certainly help. So I think it's got to be encouraging, not just the record 6-2, but who they're beating and how they're winning.
Bob was back in full force Thursday night, Dan. Not in that order, but as Rick Dempsey always likes to put it, Brock, O'Day, Britton, if you can get to them at the end of the game, you got a pretty good chance. And again, that was the formula for the Orioles Thursday against the Blue Jays to put them 6-2 on the season. Now, before we let you go, Dan, a couple of roster moves. Oliver Drake designated for assignment to make room for Stefan Crichton. We saw a lot of good things from him in spring training. Manager Buck Showalter seemed pretty impressed, and now he will get his opportunity. Jason Garcia also, just a couple of minutes before we are taping this, also designated for assignment to make room for Damian Magnifico. I believe that's how you say that. We'll maybe find out here shortly. But the Orioles made one of their trades for an international bonus slot to acquire him from the Brewers. Your thoughts on a couple more roster moves and some juggling with some of these pitching pieces for the Orioles?
Well, honestly, the thing that first strikes me is Buck Showalter talks about not getting fooled in March, not getting fooled in March, not getting fooled in March. Guys have good Marches, guys have bad, springs, Marches, and you really got to be able to kind of differentiate whether it's just a good spring or if this guy really can contribute. They obviously believe Crichton can contribute. I mean, we're a week and a half into the season, and they're calling this guy up. And he basically spent most of the season at Double-A last year. He had, I guess, a 3.79 ERA at Bowie. And, he really did impress this spring. I saw him a couple times, and they really liked he threw strikes, he pounded the zone, and I think that they feel like he can contribute at the Major League level. I believe they felt like Oliver Drake could contribute at the Major League level as well, and they've seen that happen at times too. It's kind of an unfortunate thing for Drake. He had no minor league options remaining. And I think that's more than anything else, more than his performance, more than anything, I think what hurt Drake is they couldn't send him down and bring somebody else up. And that's what they want to do with this spot, to be able to kind of move guys back and forth. Crichton has minor league options. They'll obviously use one if they send him back down, but he is now, on the 40-man. He's now a guy that they liked to put him on the 40-man in December. And so I think that there's a situation here with Crichton that he got this opportunity simply because they're going to start doing their juggling, their shuttle between Norfolk and Camden Yards and back and forth. And unfortunately for Drake, he got caught in there. Obviously, we know Drake is a great story, Naval Academy guy, picked in the 43rd round. That round doesn't even exist anymore, Steve. So, I mean, hopefully for the Orioles' sake and for Oliver Drake's sake, he'd love to stay in the organization. He can be outrighted if he goes through waivers. Well, he'll get through waivers. I don't know. Jason Garcia is a Rule 5 pick from a couple years ago. Big arm. Hasn't been able to fully harness it. They had to keep him up all the way through in 2015. And, he's a good kid. I hope that he does well. I hope that they'll be able to, they'll be able to keep him in the organization as well. I would think he would pass through waivers. But again, he's got a big arm, and maybe somebody sees that and thinks they can do something with him. As far as Magnifico, I have no idea. What we were just told by Dan Duquette is that, he has a big fastball. He's got a two-seam sinker that's very good, and a slider that can be a strikeout out pitch. This is what Dan Duquette and those guys do. They look for guys. They're kind of on the fringes, and he's a guy who obviously has options. He's now on the 40-man roster, and again, he'll just be another possibility for the Orioles.
Pitching moves galore, Dan, as we've become very accustomed to over the last couple of years in the Dan Duquette, Buck Showalter era. For Dan Connolly, I'm Steve Cockey. Until next time, so long.